to brighten other people's world with a smile, all of a sudden the world brightens up around you. It's like reciprocal. It's so interesting. And it's something in psychology that I don't want to talk about more because I don't have the studies in front of me, but it's something about us having a good attitude and keeping a good attitude around the people that we are having or around with that makes us so much better at whatever we want to do. Let's stop fighting beliefs. Stop fighting beliefs and let's try to find common ground. We're all on this planet together. According to statistics, it's the person who's mediocre that actually advances further. But is racism the reason the crime rates are so high? I can't say that. You know, that's a tough question. I don't think it's racism. The crime rates are going to be so high. I'm going to be honest with you. Actually, I can't answer that. It's human nature. And I'm being truthful about where we're going right now. We're not going in the right direction. We're not going in the right direction to heal and mend this country. Let's jump on in. You know what time it is, folks. That's right. It's time for more In the Hot Box with Doc Reo. And today we're talking about self-efficacy versus self-confidence. That's right. Self-efficacy versus self-confidence. The mindset to achieve. This lesson right here is mostly focused on achieving. How can we achieve our goals after we start to retrieve the information that helps us gain self-confidence, to gain that ability to see that we are effective in our lives and everything that we want to do. So how do we do that? Well, one of the things, first, we got to define what is the difference between self-confidence and self-efficacy. I think that's important to really know the difference, right? Well, the difference is self-efficacy is a person's belief in their abilities to succeed in a particular situation. And self-confidence is an attitude about your skills and abilities. Now, they sound really similar, right? But that little bit makes that difference. So it's important to also recognize that it takes both to grow a mindset to achieve. Not just a mindset to believe, not just a mindset to retrieve, but it also takes self-efficacy and self-confidence to grow a mindset to achieve. Right? Because you got to get the goals, you got to keep that strength going up, right? So let's jump into the rest of this lesson. Of course, I got a quote today, and this quote is another one of my favorites. Oops, I didn't want to edit the slides. This quote is another one of my favorites here. This quote is all about climbing up. You probably heard it if you've seen any of my lessons. You probably or seen any of my quotes online. You probably have seen this quote before, and that is, don't just hang in there, climb up. You know, like this guy in this photo. He's hanging from the ledge, and I know he's probably taking a break. I mean, but in this photo, you just see him hanging. You don't see him like looking like he's climbing, but you know he's almost reaching his destination. But for me, I've got a little impatience sometimes when it comes to my destination. So a lot of times you won't see me take the breaks that I might need. But, you know, we got to take breaks sometimes, and we'll talk more about that in Succeed. But for now, let's continue with climb up here. And that's the docism for the day, by the way. Why isn't this working? There we go. So what will you learn in this video? Let's get to the nitty gritty. In this video, you will learn how to recognize which skills to practice, how to utilize game elements to improve productivity, and how to avoid procrastination. All right, one more time. How to recognize which skills to practice, how to utilize game elements to improve productivity, and how to avoid procrastination. 3 major things to help you achieve. So let's get into them. I call it niche peeking. Niche peeking. If you've heard any of my other lessons, you've seen the niche peeking in another video. I'm going to briefly go over that. I think it's important because it actually hints on some of the stuff that I was reading through and applying the science of learning and other areas. Okay, so of course, what do you know? Always goes back to what do you know. Why does it go back to what do you know? Because that's your strongest point. What you know is the key to transformation. What you know is the key to change. What you know is the key to your future. We should all be digging into what we know and figuring out what we can do right now in this current climate, right? So, what can we do? What do you know? All right? Well, what do you know? If you don't know what you know, then, and if you already know what you know, then you need to figure out what you don't know, right? So the next thing I would say is not just what do you know, but what do you don't know? You see, research is the key to what you don't know. And it's that filling that gap between the ZPD. And if you want to know what I'm talking about, go back to the last lesson where we talk about the zone of proximal development. Albert Vince Giorgi, trying to say it right, it's Giorgi. Albert Vint Giorgi is a name that most people don't know. Most people don't know because of the time that this particular evaluator, examiner, I want to say scientist, but this particular discoverer, that's exactly what I want to call Albert Vint Giorgi, was a discoverer that looked into things that you wouldn't even have guessed. I bet many of you don't even know who this person is. Why? Because at the time, we were in the midst of war with Albert's country, or the country that Albert was involved with, which was Germany at the time. So, in that time, Albert Vince Giorgi, trying to say it right, actually discovered vitamin C. Would you believe it? Now, understand that from what I heard and what I've learned, that basically he didn't discover vitamin C because, of course, people who had been on ships, Vikings and others, knew that they had to take in certain fruits or eat certain fruits to keep certain diseases away. Of course, they were using vitamin C and not knowing what it was. But Albert decided to find out exactly what it was. He decided to research. It was that passage for him to get past that gap. I know that these work. We know that in the zone of proximal development, we know that this works. But why does this work? I don't understand why it works. I can't get to the destination of why it works. Because research is to see what everybody else has seen. That's what Albert says. Research is to see what everybody else has seen and to think what everybody else has thought. Everybody wanted to know. If you want to know how vitamin C works, look up his research. His research delves into what is vitamin C. We didn't know what vitamin C was until we were in a world war with Germany. Understand, we just knew we had to eat certain fruits, like oranges and other fruits that contain mass amounts of vitamin C. So research is so important for us, and research allows us to dig and find the things we don't know so that we can get to the next level, finding out what we do know or what we can find. You see, if we find out what we do know and we find out what we don't know, we can research what we don't know and find the data we need to succeed. It's not just about achieving, because when we achieve small goals, we start to succeed. That's where this voyage is going. Remember, we'll get back to that later. But when I talk about data, you have to do, or we have to do, a drill down. Now, this is going back to the niche picking. This is going back to what skills or how to recognize the skills you need to practice. So remember that when we talk about how to recognize the skills you need to practice, you're niche peaking right now. You are researching the skills you need to practice that will be effective to provide value in the community for not just yourself, but for your community. Remember that you're the only I in community. So there's got to be other people you commune with. Whatever you're going to do is either provide a service or a product to somebody, right? So if you're going to provide a service or a product to somebody, then you need to know what that community is thinking, what that community wants, what that community desires. So you need that data. You need to do the drill down. You see what I mean? You do the drill down as part of that research. And not only is it part of that research to do the drill down, it's part of that research to look at your competition. There's got to be other people in the field, right? Got to be other people in the field. Find out who else is doing the same thing that you're doing. You'd be like, oh, I don't want to know if there's competition, because if there's competition, it's a good thing. That means it's working. And if there's competition, you might be able to follow a battle plan of somebody else's battle plan, just like hopefully you're following my battle plan of how to go from zero to a hero. You know what I mean? And I don't mean Superman hero saving lives. I mean a hero that leaves a legacy that's worthwhile. Somebody who can do something for your community. That's what a hero is. A hero is somebody who does something for their community that helps others in the long run. Whether that be if they sacrifice their abilities, their time, their efforts to give, or whether that be they build something or create something, which is sacrificing their time and their efforts to give. So with that being said, if you want to know what your competition is doing, why do you want to know what your competition is doing? Because you want to be able to follow or check out another game plan and see what they're not doing as well. See the things that you compare with the data. You see, because when you find out who is doing the same thing, you can make a comparison between what you want to do, what the people, the community wants, and what they are doing, your competition, and try to fill that gap. You see, the gap is the most important part. I'll tell you a little story about the gap. About a friend of mine who was a business partner of mine as well. You see, my business partner, William Folger, had a father who actually owned the first video store in Midland, Texas. Folgers. Now, Folgers was an electronics store that I actually still have. It's funny. I actually have a surge protector that says Folgers Electronics on it when it still was around. Now, Folgers, Mr. Folger, he was smart enough to open up a video store in his town after being the biggest electronics store around. He was the first one to open up videotapes and rent them out to his community. Well, guess who came along? Blockbuster Video. How many of y'all remember Blockbuster Video? I know it's not that far gone, but Blockbuster Video came around and offered to buy his store. They had a decision to make. Should he sell his video store to a major corporation who would come in and pretty much take over town, or does he fight to keep it local? Well, he fought to keep it local, and he lost. Blockbuster came in, and they just did it better. People went to Blockbuster all the time, just like people started going to Red more than they started going to Blockbuster, just like people started going to Netflix. You see, when the people have a gap that they need to fill, Blockbuster can fill the gap nationwide, and they can do it cheaper, better. Redbox can fill the gap that of late fees and provide a service without all the hassle for the customer. But who came by and blew them out of the water? Netflix. You don't even have to leave your own home. And so each and every time, competition provides innovation, and innovation provides more comparison. And that comparison is a good problem to have. You get to compare with your competition. So make sure you dig deep into that data and find out that gap. Because when you find out that gap, you'll know exactly. You know exactly what skills you'll need to use. I'm still digging deep. All the time I'm digging deep to find out what skills. And I'm realizing that learning experience designer is what I need to be. That's where I'm going. That's where I will be. So that's where you'll see me. I had a friend of mine say, oh, you know, you're going to teach? What do you mean you're going to teach? I was just looking at a job on Netflix for a learning experience designer, as a matter of fact, at Netflix. But he said, you're going to teach? Oh, you know, that's for people who can't do. And I went, yeah. Ironically, I've met more people who have done more in this industry, people I've worked with, people I've done stuff with in this industry who have come back and started teaching. I've met more executive producers, you know what I'm saying? Producers of major films who come back and teach in this industry. The truth is, those who do teach. If there's no doubt about it, look at all these people doing their master classes online now. Some of the biggest names you ever see are doing what? Master classes. So dig deep and figure it out, because there's always going to be competition. No matter what you do, even when you started and you're the first one and it works, somebody's going to come right behind you. Uber, Lyft, Sidecar. Sidecar fell off, but Uber and Lyft are still around. Producing models that work comes with failure. And sometimes the failure is not your own. So dig deep and find out what's out there. Practice evaluating and analyzing things while you grow. All right? And then invest in yourself. Put in on yourself. You know what I'm saying? You got to put in on this before you can grow this. You know what I'm saying? Because if you didn't put in on this, you get none of the pieces. I know a lot of people be like, oh, I wish I could do that. I wish I can do that. And they spend their money on other stuff. Other frills that they don't, you know what I mean? What do I spend my money on? I will go broke spending my money on making sure I have tools to go to the next level. I have gone broke spending my money trying to make sure I get tools to get to the next level. Why? Because I'm a sure bet. I can bet on all kind of stuff. I can go out there right now and buy a lottery ticket. That's betting on the odds. But I know that if I invest in myself, I'm going to get up and say, I got to get up. I just put money on that. You know what I'm saying? I can go invest in somebody else and do the same exact thing. Say, well, you know, I'm investing in somebody else. And they can look at me and like, they're complacent. They're like, you paid me already. I know a few people I've already done that to. I know a few people I've paid stuff to and still don't have a final product. You know? And I'm not getting on their case. It's just the way life works. Some people don't do. Some people don't complete. I've been in that boat. I've done productions where I didn't complete. And I make sure now that I complete things. You know why? Because I give myself deadlines. I put in personal management systems to make sure I complete things. Some things still don't get completed because you're not going to complete everything in life, but the majority of what you say you're going to get done gets done. That's what we expect out of our leaders, right? So why don't we expect that out of ourselves? And when you invest in yourself, get yourself some subscriptions, some tools. Maybe even hire some people. Invest in yourself first. But if you hire people, make sure, you know, you're hiring the right people. And the only thing you need to do when it comes to that, when it comes to this part of figuring out how to recognize which skills to practice is get started. Just get started. You know what I'm saying? I say failing to succeed requires taking the first step. One more time. If you're going to fail to succeed, that's what I call it. I call it failing to succeed because Edison didn't make the light bulb in his first try. He had thousands of failures before he succeeded. But he kept being persistent and persevering. So we got to fail to succeed. So if you're going to fail to succeed, it requires taking the first step. Like Nike, just do it. You might hear me say that over and over again. Just do it. Let's talk about the next part of this lesson. As you see, I'm taking a break in between each section. Next part of this lesson digs into what? What did I say? What did I say? How to use gamification. How to use gamification, or how to utilize game elements to improve productivity. How to utilize game elements to improve productivity. That's what we're going to get into. So with that being said, we need to jump into what? The important part of niche peaking and starting is remember that when you start and you get in that cycle of everything that you do, and you go through that process and you see everything that you need to do, once you start to get on that steps, you're going to run into obstacles. Like I said, in believing, you're going to go from believing to retrieving, and you're going to end up going back to that belief state again. You're going to have to keep going back to that belief state, even when you are achieving. You will be achieving, and you'll start maybe getting certifications. You might start getting awards. You might start actually gaining community status. You might start actually getting paid well. And you'll run into a wall where you don't believe, once again, that you can accomplish something. You'll run into a wall where fear gets in the way. You'll run into a wall where a hater or a significant other hater or a family member hater comes in, and I want to specify those specifically so you get the full focus here. Somebody comes in and says something that deters you, that makes you disbelieve that you can do what you can do. Just remember, back up a little bit. Remember where you came from. Don't forget where you came from. Go back to retrieval. Go back to belief. Start over if you got to. But make sure you stay focused on the goals you're trying to achieve. Because if you can stay focused on those goals you're trying to achieve over here, those goals will make it happen for you. And as you keep achieving those goals, you'll start to see that success is only a short walk away. It's just a question of where you want to take that success to. And we'll talk more about that in the next lesson. But how do you utilize game elements to improve productivity? Now, first off, some of y'all, when you hear the word gamification, y'all are probably like, game what? What are you talking about? It's supposed to be at work. It's supposed to be making money. It's supposed to be doing the business, right? And business has nothing to do with gaming, right? Right? That's what we think. That's what we assume. That's what we figure out. But I'm not saying it does. Gaming is a totally different thing than business, unless you're talking about the business of gaming. I'm not talking about playing games. I'm not talking about playing video games. I'm not talking about anything like that. I'm talking about taking some of the actual game elements from gaming and making our day-to-day drudgery and tediousness more fun. Those things that we don't want to do, those things that we procrastinate doing, those things that we like that are blocking us from getting to our goals because they're not fun, they're not exciting, they're just that part of what we don't want to do, but we got to get it done in order to do the things we want to do. Taking game elements and adding them to them makes it more fun and makes us more efficient because we put in a workflow that personally manages our behavior. Well, that's interesting. Before I said we need to put in workflows and personal management systems. But if you put in a workflow that personally manages your behavior, then you've done them both in one shot. And we call that killing two birds with one stone. Although I wouldn't want to kill two birds. But for those still asking, unless they're angry birds, I can kill two angry birds. For those who are asking, game what? Okay, first off, game what? We got to talk about dynamics, all right? These are the elements you're going to put in there. You're going to look at game dynamics and add some elements of game dynamics into your drudgery and tediousness, into your work zone. Now, dynamics, what does that mean? It's the progress. You know what I mean? It's about showing how you can make progress. That's the dynamics. Every game has a start at one point, end at another point. So first off, you got like Monopoly. Let's take it out of video games for a second. Let's go to board games. Something that everybody knows. We all start at where? We all start at the start. At go. At go. And once we pass go, we have to go around the board until we pass go. And once we pass go, we collect $200, right? That is the dynamics of the game. But the dynamics of the game also include, right, progress, the strengths, the limitations, the constraints, all right? Dynamics include the constraints. Whether it's, all right, constraints basically is the limitation or forced trade-off. You know what I mean? The things you needed to use to trade off. They're the limitation of the game. But also, it includes the emotions. You know, because we get excited when we start collecting. I know when we go around the board and we land on a spot that we want to get and we want to buy that spot, and then somebody else lands on it and they got to pay us a whole bunch of money, we can get excited when we play Monopoly. Right? I know I do. You know? And then there's a narrative. You know, I mean, we kind of make our own narratives as we go through the board on Monopoly. You know, the narrative actually comes out of those actual chance cards, though, too. Because they say that you do certain things and you get chance or community cards, and those cards give you either a bonus or take stuff away from you. They build the narrative. You either get richer in Monopoly or you get poorer in Monopoly. That's the narrative for each character. And once again, that progression, you know, there's got to be some kind of progress. So you go around the board, you got to collect more money. Otherwise you'll run out of money buying property. So there's a good reason why you collect $200 every time you go around the board. And there's a good reason why some of us have changed the game, that when people pay to get out of jail, that it goes on under free parking. And if you land under free parking, you get extra money. So it makes the game more fun, makes the game more exciting, builds our emotions, builds more of the narrative, builds more progression. And it actually intertwines more of our relationships. It allows us to build with those people we play with a little bit longer. You know, otherwise the game might get boring. Otherwise, the game might seem unfair. But there's an extra bit of luck in there to help us move forward. That extra bit of luck is important. Right? Right? So let's talk about the mechanics. Because we got to put not just dynamics in there. We got to actually put in the game mechanics. What are the wheels and bolts and nuts that, and how does the machine work? Right? The rules and the activities. All right? That's what the mechanics are. The rules and the activities. All right? And that includes the challenges. What are the obstacles in the game? Well, when you talk about Monopoly, you got to roll the dice and you got to skip around other player sections. Plus, there's some obstacles in those sections that can actually cost you money, right? Like the luxury tax, you know, like to go to jail. You know what I mean? So these are the things that you go through, challenges. But there's also chance because you're rolling dice. You know, like I said before, it's that luck. That luck builds that excitement, that builds that emotions. So you have those things that push us all to play games. And I say push us all to play games because the stats are out. Majority of the world plays games in some kind of way. Almost everybody who is a human being plays games in some kind of way. So what draws us to games? What draws us to games the emotions it brings out, the chance, the competition, the cooperation. You know what I mean? To be able to work and compete and cooperate with other people. You know what I mean? Who watches the Olympic Games? Those are games. Who watches basketball, football? We all get excited when we see sports games. Some of us have played sports games. We all enjoy the aspect of gaming. And this is why it's so important to understand the dynamics and the mechanics. You know, part of the mechanics is feedback. We get feedback in the midst of gaming. Whether it's feedback that we get from ourselves of realizing that we can't do something a certain way and that we need to do it a different way, or if it's feedback from somebody else telling us, hey, you could do this better this way. And you see, I said constructive feedback because that's what keeps us going on. Even when we get negative feedback, if we look at it properly, it can be constructive. Instead of taking it as an obstacle, take it as an opportunity to do better. You know, I got to tell myself that all the time. And what about resource acquisition? You know, it's got to be something that you collect in a game, right? You collect points or you collect something. You collect trophies. I'm going to say trophies. If you talk about sports, you collect trophies. In Monopoly, you collect land. You know, there's a resource acquisition. You got to collect the resources so you collect more money, right? All right. And then rewards. All right, rewards. Come on now. Who doesn't like rewards? We all like rewards. Otherwise, people wouldn't be playing the lottery. We all love rewards. And not just, you know, the fact that we all love rewards. There are transactions in games. Like in Monopoly. We do transactions between each other. Somebody lands on your property, they got to pay you. And sometimes we make deals. Okay, you know, you don't have to pay me this round. You know, how about you trade me this? Or how about I get a free pass on your land next time we go through or whatever, right? So it's transactions as part of cooperation that there's transactions. And if it's a digital game, there's transactions within the game. And then there's turns. People take turns. Got to take turns, right? Unless it's a group effort, then we're still taking a turn. If you ever played any game like World of Warcraft, you know, and we go fight a boss, we take turns fighting different bosses as we go through dungeons. You take turns, and not everything is consistent overburden or overbearing or too much consistent action. There is rest periods in between. And those rest periods allow us to take turns so that we can recuperate. Maybe recuperate our mind, maybe recuperate our hands, maybe recuperate our bodies, the rest of our bodies. You know, so there are turns. And there's win states, objectives. When you win, you get little wins along the way. You know, you might win a property in Monopoly. You might win a chance to get to go faster and skip properties that you might not want to fall on and lose your money. There are all these opportunities out there within the mechanics. And if we pay attention to the mechanics or the rules of the game, and rules and activities of game, and we put them into our everyday work area, we can have this same kind of fun. And not just that. Let's talk about the components. I'm not even done. There's more parts of gaming that make it more fun. And the components are part of the things that we've been seeing lately in gaming or in some work areas. Let's take LinkedIn, for instance. Now, they talk about this all the time, that LinkedIn got smart. LinkedIn was having a problem with people filling out their profiles, right? And LinkedIn decided to put in what they call a PBL, all right? A PBL is either points, badges, or a leaderboard, right? So they put in a system that is more like a leveling system, but it shows how far you have matched up or added the stuff into your account so that you can become a leader on on LinkedIn. You can become like all the other leaders and be a pro user on LinkedIn. I think that's the actual amount. I mean, what they call it. I forget what they actually call it on, because I've been that for so long. A superstar. That's it. Superstar. You become a superstar on LinkedIn. And becoming a star means that you've completed your profile and that you've connected to certain things and you've done certain steps. And that progress bar is your points. You get a certain amount of points until you get to the end. And once you get to the end of those points, you're on the leaderboards. You're one of the leaders, because most people don't understand that almost about 80, maybe 70 now percent of the world is not on LinkedIn. 70% of the people in the world who have had jobs are not on LinkedIn. It was more than that, but I'm sure this pandemic has changed things. So if that many people are not using LinkedIn, then the ones who are, not all of them have completed their progress bar. And if you're one of those people who haven't completed your progress bar, stay tuned, because I have a LinkedIn course that I have. If you want to know more about that, hit me up, 310-844-9285. I'll tell you more about how to get better at your LinkedIn profile. Trust me. I got about 1,100 connections on LinkedIn, and I'm keep growing. Why? Because I completed the progress bar. And within that, I started doing other steps, other things you can do to make it further on LinkedIn. But LinkedIn used a game component, a game element. You see what I mean? And some of those game elements are achievements. When you get to a certain level, you become a superstar. Hey, when you talk about Monopoly, you collect $200 when you pass go. You land on a certain property, you can buy it. That's an achievement. Or you land on chance, you might get some extra money. You land on, in our way of playing, you land on free parking, you get some extra cash. So, it's those little things like achievements, avatars, badges. We all got our own private avatar. We all get badges with those avatars for completing certain steps. We have to get in boss fights, So in games, not Monopoly, but in Monopoly, boss fights are us fighting the other person to win the game, to see who's got the last piece of land, who's got the last piece of money. That's a boss fight. And it might come down to who's skipping over. One of us has Park Place, and one of us has Boardwalk, and we're both coming around that corner trying to get to go. That's a boss fight right there. I call that a boss fight. But there's collections, there's combat, there's content unlocking, there's gifting, there's leaderboards, there's levels, there's points, there's quests, there's social graphs. You're like, what the heck is a social graph? Friends list. When you connect your friends, they get an idea of your whole community. Social community, social graph. Some games have quests. I'm going back. Some games have points and levels. Some games have leaderboards. Sometimes you can actually give something to another person in the game. Like we were talking about in Monopoly. You can say, hey, well, next time I'll charge you, but this time if you give me a pass on your property, Teams. I've seen people do Monopoly teams, but in a lot of video games, we got guilds. We got groups of people fighting games together. We got sports teams now. We got gaming sports teams now. And it's big money around the world. And then we have things that you can spend cash on. Call them virtual goods if you talk about online. But even in Monopoly, we have virtual goods. You can buy apartments. You can buy houses and hotels, not apartments. Houses and hotels. And the hotels net you more money than the houses do. You buy 4 houses, you get more money. For anybody who lands on your property, you got to pay higher rent. You see, all these things are in gamification. So If these things don't inspire you to understand the why, let's talk about the why gamification. And the reason why I want to talk about it, because it works, first of all. We all know that Fitbit, right? Fitbit. All right. How many people do you know did not want to work out until they got themselves a Fitbit? How many people do you know do not work out unless they can compare themselves to somebody else and see that they have a certain amount of steps? Or how many office situations have you heard of where they'll do a competition, a walking competition? That's the only time you see people walking. That's the only time you see people ranting and raving about how many steps they have, is when they're in a competition for the office to win a prize. Because gamification, taking game elements and putting them into our everyday lives, works. I mean, something as simple as, I do something as simple as sometimes, let's talk about laundry. Let's talk about laundry. I do laundry, right? We all do laundry. I can't stand doing laundry. I'm going to just be honest. And there's a lesson in this here, an extra lesson in this here. And I think it's because I've run into people who have privilege and they think differently about laundry. And I'm going to say that because when I lived in a house, when we had a 5-bedroom house and the laundry machine was on our back porch, I loved doing laundry. I'm going to be honest. I love doing laundry. I was happy to, but I was doing it twice a week. Twice, 3 times, sometimes 4 times a week. I was just doing laundry just to do laundry sometimes. Get in there, get on the back and lean against the machine sometimes, because it's at home. It's different. Now, don't get me wrong. I live in an apartment now and the laundry is still at home. But it takes me going outside of my apartment, going out to another spot, combating, not necessarily combating, but dealing with the obstacle of that. Those machines may not be open. Those machines may not be clean. Those machines may be broke. Those machines may not work right. They may take my money or take my digital money now, and it's just not the same. It's a complication, or they may not even have hot water. Like today, I did laundry and I put laundry in the machine, and the hot water, I ended up having to do the load again for the hot water to finally connect to the machine from the boiler room, which is right next door. So I had to do the load twice in order to actually get my whites clean. But I got my whites clean, but I don't like to do laundry. And so I might procrastinate to do laundry. I might do it. And we'll talk more about that later, but I might procrastinate to do laundry. And so I notice one thing that I do within that is I do kind of make it a game, like when I was not folding my clothes, because I don't like to fold my shirts, not even my t-shirts. I actually hang them all up because I just rather not fold them. It just seems like a waste of energy to me to fold them when I can put them on a hanger, So I put my t-shirts on the hangers. And as I'm putting them on hangers, I'm counting them. 1, 2. First, before I even put them on hangers, I take them and shake them out. I shake them out consistently. I shake my clothes probably more than anybody else shakes their clothes in their life. When I wash my clothes, before I wash my clothes, I shake my clothes out and then I put them in the washing machine. When I wash my clothes, I shake them out to put them in the dryer. Once I take them from the dryer, I shake them before I lay them down, and then I put them on the hanger, and then I shake them on the hanger and put them up. I just do a lot of shaking of my clothes. You know what I mean? So, and it's maybe because I don't like an iron. I do have a steamer, but I don't like an iron. When I was a little kid, I did not like the drudgery of ironing because I had to do everybody's ironing in the house. Everyone's ironing in the house. Even when Marvin Gaye was shot, I was doing the ironing, listening to the shot being fired and the radio saying that Marvin Gaye was just shot by his father down the block from us. So understand that I have bad memories of ironing, so I don't like to iron. So I'd rather send it out, get it pressed if I need to get it pressed. So, and so there are different reasons why I don't like to do laundry. But for me, I have to take that into account for myself. I understand myself and I know myself. When it comes to other people, we have to take that into account as well. And I say this only because I heard someone in the field who's a great professional. I like what they do. They're a really great person in their field and they really mean well. But they mentioned wrinkled clothes and they were talking about why don't people just throw their shirt in the laundry that morning, you know, and dry it off and wet it and dry it off before they come into work so they're not as wrinkled in a t-shirt. And I say to them that not everybody has that opportunity to just dry something for a quick couple of seconds. Not everybody has the opportunity to spend that 150, especially when you're talking about students. Not everybody has that opportunity. Now I did, so I understood what they meant, and I made sure I wasn't wrinkled when I came into work. You know what I mean? But other people don't have that, and so that lesson is we must include everyone else, and we must understand the diversity from cultures that they may not have. You know, people don't have the same opportunities that we all have. And even in this case, I understand that you all don't have the same opportunities. So I'm asking you to look into your own opportunities to find out how you should get ahead. Look into your own things and see how you can make those things easier for you and how you can use gamification to make it more fun so that you can get through the drudgery and the tediousness and accomplish the goals. So let's get back to why gamification. Why gamification? All right. Well, things like Fitbit, because Fitbit provides motivation of 3 different levels. It provides intrinsic motivation. It provides, I hit desire, but it provides intrinsic motivation for those who may be amotivated. Those people who didn't want to work out in those businesses and they do a competition, all of a sudden those people are doing walks, so they get points. So now we've provided some kind of extrinsic motivation for those who are amotivated to where maybe after they've done a couple of walks, they won't stop. Maybe they'll become one of those, hey, you know what? I like getting these points. I like competing with my next, it becomes something that they want to do. It becomes intrinsic motivation for them. And to further define intrinsic motivation and extrinsic motivation is that which we want to do just because we want to do it. Extrinsic motivation means that there is something that's motivating us to do it outside of our wants and our desires. All right. And so when we talk about desire is something that makes it exciting and fun. It's not tedium. It's not drudgery. It motivates us to engage more. It motivates us to do more even when we don't think we want to do more. We might work more hours. We might think about it when we're at home. We might work on it when we're at home, and we're not supposed to work on it when we're at home, but we might think about ways we can improve and keep fighting for improvement. That is the best part about desire. Desire makes us engage, and the best part about why gamification? Because it also adds autonomy. For those who don't know what autonomy is that ability to say that I can do this by myself. It's kind of like self-efficacy in a sense, but it's not, because if you ever have not had autonomy, you've had somebody looking over your shoulder at what you do. When you have autonomy, somebody gives you a task and they let you go to it. They let you put in your insight, let you do what you do. If it makes you feel as though you're an integral part of the process, and it increases your self-efficacy. That's what we want to do, right? And if it increases your self-efficacy, it allows us to add our personal input into our techniques, and it builds our self-confidence so that we can increase our self-efficacy more. See why these two are important? I might have said those backwards. I might have put them out of place because you want to get that self-confidence first to build that self-efficacy. But look at that. If all of a sudden we increase our personal input and our techniques, we build our self-confidence, and then we feel like we're an integral part, that we're an important part of the process, of the creative process, or whatever it is, we start to push harder and we increase our self-efficacy along the way. Not just that, it also those two things help us build our competence. We become very competent at what we do, and we practice it more. The more we practice it, the better we get at it, right? And the more we practice, the better we get at something. What happens when we practice and we get better at something? You know, like any other game. Like I say, the competence. The more it's like a game, the more we want to play it, the more competent we get at it, the better we get at it, we gain experience. And not just gain experience. And this one experience should have been next, but we start to get that relatedness with other people. You know, we start to connect with those that we play games with, that connect with those and have exciting and fun. And we get on a different level with those who we play games with. And it helps us gain that experience that we need. That experience that we need to get to the next level. You know, because we start practicing in it and we use these useful techniques through the practice to increase our abilities and our abilities of observation, but also our abilities in what we do. And see, our abilities of observation allow us to see when the risk is too far or the risk is just enough. You know, so we gain more experience. We want that experience, right? And so the question is, how do we put gamification in it? How can we create it? How to create skills in gamification? Well, we got to think like a gamer. You got to think like a gamer. And since we all play games, we can all think like a gamer. You know, how can I get around these rules? You know, I find it funny that whenever we play a game, we figure out ways to break the rules or bend the rules, which is what we should be doing, bend the rules. But you'll see a lot of people, whenever it's a game, figure out how to break the rules, right? They figure out how to do cheat codes or change the rules, or even in Monopoly. People got so many different rules to bend or break those actual traditional Monopoly rules, like putting that cash under free parking is bending the rules. Actually turning around and telling somebody, hey, let's make a deal, is bending the rules. We can always figure out ways to bend the rules, right? Right? Gamers, that's what we do. We bend rules. So how come we don't think like it in our regular life? How come we don't think that, hey, if I take this a different way and do this differently? I'm not saying break or bend a rule, but I'm saying think outside the box. Well, let's get to that. You got to think like a game designer. And a game designer thinks outside the box. And how do they think outside the box? Well, they try to figure out what a gamer likes. You know, as a gamer, we know what we like. But how do we figure out what other gamers like? We start getting back to that data. We got to dig into it. We got to start thinking like a gamer so that we start thinking like a designer. So we start defining objectives, explaining the target behaviors. You know what I mean? And when I mean target behaviors, explaining the target behaviors, well, you got to have certain behaviors to get to the next level in the game. And so, all right, if I'm doing this at work and I want to do this particular task at work, just like on LinkedIn, the target behavior for us was to fill out our profile. The target behavior was for me to complete this task of tediousness and drudgery. So my target behavior is to complete the task, but the objective is to go from point A to point B in the task. And I got to figure out what kind of moves, or describe the players. I'm the player, so figure out what kind of moves this player is going to make through creating activities. So I create some kind of task, like what I was doing with the laundry. You know, I do my shirts, I'm shaking my shirts, and I'm counting my shirts. 1, 2. As I'm shaking them and I'm putting them down. I put them down and I count. I counted that I put 10 shirts down, and when I get to that goal, I feel good that I put 10 shirts on a hanger. Then I wait for the next batch. You know what I mean? It's that progression. It's that I achieved a step. I achieved one step to get to the next point. And every time after I'm done with my laundry, I really feel good about doing laundry. But when doing laundry, I don't feel good about doing it. Like I said, if I was somebody else and had to do my laundry down the block at a laundromat, I would really hate it. I would really hate it. I never could stand, when I was a kid, I couldn't stand going to the laundromat. And I definitely don't want to go to the laundromat now. So I'm glad there's a laundry in my building. That's one of the amenities I look for when I rent, because I think I'm going to be a renter for life even when I own the building. So with that being said, if we create activities, we describe the players, we explain the target behaviors, we define the objectives, then we got to make sure there's one thing that we do, right? If we're going to do this, what is the ultimate goal of taking this tedious and drudgery and changing it? What's the ultimate goal of it? We got to make sure we have fun. And so what will happen is we'll start doing the job better and do it more effectively, but also we have fun doing it. And that changes the process for us. And like I said, having fun means we use the right tools to have fun, and it motivates us to do more. You know what I mean? We put in those motivators, those intrinsic, those extrinsic things that make us want to continue to do. And those things that make us want to continue to do help us think out of the box. Because we got to think out of the box. At some point, we got to say, okay, I'm motivated to do it, so how can I do it? And we use that thought that I was talking about in belief, that thought that we use to make sure that we retrieve the information is why we have to go back to retrieving, why we have to go back to believing, to come back to achieving. Because every time we get to that step, something's going to get in our way, and an obstacle is going to get in our way, and when that obstacle gets in our way, we got to turn around and say, what? Oh no, I got to believe again. I do it all the time. I get stuck in my track and then I'm like, oh, I can't. Wait a minute, I can't? What do you mean I can't? I can. How can I? Let's retrieve the information I need so that I can achieve this goal, right? I got to be motivated though. And I got to think outside the box in order to do it. But remember, if you're going to take game tactics and put it into your work, keep it simple. Don't put a whole bunch of game tactics in there. I explained a whole bunch of stuff back there about gamification. Take a couple of them. Start small. You know what I mean? Don't go in and say, oh yeah, I'm going to put all this stuff in there and you're going to get confused and you're going to confuse yourself and you're going to make it less fun for yourself. Trust me, I've done it. I've done it with some of these lessons in the past. Made them less fun. Like this lesson is fun to me, even though it has all this stuff in it. But because I put in things to make it simple, areas to make it simple for myself. It may not be simple for everyone watching it, and it's going to get simpler as I grow and get better at doing it. But as I do these free lessons with 3 lessons in one, free lesson, so that people have to search and dig the meat out, I'm having fun doing it. And as long as I'm having fun doing it, then I'm more motivated to make the next round, to do the next round. And that comes with me keeping it simple. And also consider some PBLs. Keeping it simple, you can consider one of the 3 PBLs. And what are PBLs again? Points, badges, or leaderboards. So consider giving yourself points. I give myself points. That's why I was counting up to 10, because 10, or counting up to whatever the number is, now I successfully achieved that goal. So if you give yourself points or a PBL system, some kind of system to get whatever task you need to get done, you might even give yourself a reward for getting a certain amount of points. I know a lot of people who do at work, they do the curse bucket, and people are rewarded for not cursing. Whoever doesn't have to get on the list gets rewarded because they didn't let one slip that week. But everybody who had to let one slip had to put money in the pot. Make it so that you are motivated. Give yourself a motivator somehow. A point system, a badge system, or a leaderboard system. And if it's in the business, I know a lot of people who do this in business, and The reason why I said that about laundry before is because I want to make sure that people are being aware that in the sales industry, there are a lot of PBLs going on. And that kind of makes the sales industry a male dominated industry, sales and marketing, because of the way those systems are set up. Let's be a little bit more cognizant of those who may not fit into the game systems when we put them in our work zones. Let's create games that don't alienate people. Like, I always stayed on the sales leaderboard, so, and I always fought for it, but, it is kind of stressful. And it does pit us against each other as employees when we should be working together. We should be working together as a team. And there are ways to create games that benefit us all and still create that same competition. So those are things that are food for thought when you talk about using PBLs, folks. Don't overuse them. Don't use them the wrong way, and just keep it simple. Don't go overboard like I tend to. Keep it simple. Right? Do as I say, not as I do. No. Do as I am attempting to do. Do as I am working towards doing, not attempting to do. Do as I'm working towards doing and as I've grown from. Don't follow the do as I say, not as I do, because real leaders do. You got to lead the way. It's the only way you can be a leader. So, with that being said, like those lieutenants who like to do it from behind and let other people go in advance, never did like those guys. Never did like those guys. So, with that being said, your next step. What is your next step? You got to get started. And I keep saying animation. I know I said animation before with her, but that's not an animation. That's a photo. I like this photo because it's things that make you go, photo. It's just that feeling. Like, what motivates me? I had to ask myself in order to get started. So you'll have to ask yourself, what motivates you? What motivates you? What are the things that kick you in the butt and get you out of bed in the morning and make you go get something? Is it being broke? Is it being hungry? Is it being thirsty? Is it a drive for something that you love to do? Is it because you love your family and you love the people in your household? Is it that you know that it's your duty and you love completing your duty? What is it that drives you? What is it that motivates you? That's what you have to ask. And for me, I have to ask what motivates me, because I also have to ask, how much will I invest? You can't just invest in yourself without having some kind of a limit. You got to ask yourself how much, because I've been known to go overboard and be without, which can cause you more financial disparities in the long run. It can cause you more financial loss in the long run if you do not manage your investments. So ask yourself, how much are you willing to invest? How much do you want to put in yourself? How much can you invest in yourself right now to get to the next level? That's what you want to do. So now, I've got to ask, how many of us procrastinate? Got to ask. I know I procrastinate. You procrastinate, motherfucker? I know you procrastinate. I've seen you procrastinate. We all procrastinate. And the thing about procrastination is it can hinder our ability to grow. So in this last part of this lesson series, I'm going to talk about how to avoid procrastination. Right? Avoiding procrastination for me goes back to that laundry again, right? I told you I don't like doing laundry, and I will put it off and put it off and put it off, and I tend to do it late at night so that I don't have to be around other people. You know what I mean? So I don't have to fall into those things that would make me procrastinate more. So one of the first things I say about avoiding procrastination is planning. You got to have some kind of a plan. I learned something last semester which is working for me. It's actually really working for me. Last term in class, it was about learning and how we learn, and sometimes that we procrastinate with learning, and talks about avoiding procrastination. It's called why. Oh, okay. Huh. Okay. So I guess I added something in there. Have yourself an accountability coach. I didn't add it to my notes here, but have yourself an accountability coach. Whether that be somebody who is keeping you accountable or a sheet that keeps you accountable. Doesn't have to be a person, it can be a piece of paper. But that's part of your planning. Planning creates accountability, and you can be your own accountability coach by planning. And so, what I like to add to that is the 5 minute plan, but I'm calling it the 5 minute rule. And the 5 minute rule states that you take 5 minutes. You just take 5 minutes. Like, I didn't want to do the laundry, but you got to separate laundry, right? Separating laundry generally takes about 5 minutes. Might take more depending on how much laundry you have. So if I get into the 5 minutes of separating laundry, I'll get the laundry ready to start. And once I get started, I will keep going. I've noticed a lot of times if I use the 5 minute plan, that's just take 5 minutes and get started. I end up starting to work on something for 2, 3, 4, maybe even longer hours. Just from that 5 minutes, and I didn't want to do it. It's something that about getting into tedium and drudgery, once you take that 5 minute start and you take some game elements and add them into it, all of a sudden you lose track of time and you're like, wow, I didn't want to do it, but it wasn't so bad. And once you find it's not so bad, it stops you from procrastinating because you're like, okay, I'm just going to take 5 minutes and jump in there and do it. And once again, don't just jump in there and do it without seeking to have fun. Add that gamification. Add some fun elements. It can be hard fun. Things that are challenging. Well, I need to get this done by a certain amount of time. A deadline. A deadline that may seem impossible. You might not have to do it, get it done until next week, but you give yourself 2 days to do it instead. That's a hard fun. It might be an easy fun. Oh, well, all I got to do is finish these up and I can go have a piece of chocolate. Once I finish these up in the next 10 minutes, if I finish these up in the next 10 minutes, I'll have this piece of chocolate. Kick back for a moment, take some space. Easy fun. It could be alter states, trying out new personas, trying out new experiences. You could say, well, I'm going to do this in the character voice of this for this hour, and I'm going to act like this character the whole time I'm doing this until I'm the end of it. Could be fun. Some of us, we do little games between the people we work with. Might say I might have to wear a funny hat until I get this done. A funny hat I don't want to have to wear. You might do it in a group. Hey, I know I'm procrastinating. We got a procrastination group. We put together a procrastination group, and I'm wearing the funny hat right now because I procrastinated the most. So now this is going to help me achieve better. It's not a way to say that I'm downing. We're making this for fun so that I do better. It's constructive criticism. And a lot of people will look at that and be like, oh, that's going to put people in. Make it constructive. Don't make it something that degrades people, that oppresses people, that segregates people. Make it something that invites people to have fun. If you do it within a group, if you do it within a zone. And for the same for yourself, actually. Don't make it so hard that it demotivates you. Make it so that it's fun. So if you have a hard fun, make sure it's a motivational hard fun. If you have an easy fun, make sure it's not so easy that you're bored. And if you have an altered state, well, have as much fun as you can with that. Because new experiences and new personas are always just ultimately fun. And social fun. If you do it with, if you're going to do it with other people, like I said before, make sure you make it inclusive. So you also need to go back because once again, it's all about that belief system. And that belief system comes with the power of the inverted Maslowian pyramid. Don't start at the actual pyramid bottom. Flip the pyramid upside down. Invert that pyramid and say, I'm going to visualize how I'm going to do it. I'm going to believe I can do it. I'm going to see it. I'm going to create ways in my mind that I can make it happen. I'm going to bend the rules and think outside the box. I'm going to enjoy every minute of trying to figure out how I can do what I cannot or believed that I cannot do. I'm going to see if it's possible. I'm going to reach higher to dream and see if I can motivate myself to do something that I deemed impossible. And once I do that, and once I make steps to it and start achieving steps to it, my self-esteem grows. And as that self-esteem grows, I become involved with other people who enjoy what I'm producing, who enjoy what I'm sharing. And as they enjoy what I'm sharing, I start to build up better things from my needs of safety. I start to increase my potential so that I feel safe no matter what community I'm involved in. And as I increase my potential and increase my safety needs, I start to purchase the things I need that say I have the proper roof over my head, the proper comforts. I start to have the proper car that I actually right now, I love my car. I love my Mercedes. You know what I mean? Have the proper car that you have. Have the proper roof that you have. I'm comfortable, not complacently comfortable, but generally comfortable with where I'm living right now. Right now, because of COVID, I'm really comfortable where I'm living, but I could be living better. So I'm not totally, I'm thirsty for more, And so I know it's possible. I know it's possible because I start with the self-actualization and not reaching up to self-actualize from physiological needs, saying, oh, now I got a roof over my head. Now I got to figure out what I need to do to make more money. No. I'm taking it from the top of the stairs, and I'm taking a stroll down the stairs and saying hi to everybody on the way down. Because it's better to be the all-seeing eye than it is to be the person putting the blocks on the bottom of the damn pyramid. Just being honest. 5-minute poses for art studios. You know what I'm saying? 5-minute poses for art studios. He wants to, motherfucker wants to get in on it. It's easier to walk down the pyramid than it is to climb up the pyramid. So let's walk down the pyramid together, folks. Let's make it happen. And as Manfrotto says, starting at the bottom mitigates the dream. Starting at the top raises the performance bar. As in Maslow's hierarchy, the same objectives will be covered, but the process will yield richer results. This is important. I separated that on purpose because a lot of times we think opposite. We think that we have to start from the bottom and work our way up. Why do we have to start from the bottom and work our way up? Why can't we believe that we're already at the top and work our way down? Just a question. It's just a mindset. And if it's a mindset that helps us to achieve, it's a mindset that helps us to believe. It's a mindset that helps us to retrieve. It is a mindset that will definitely help us to achieve more because it already helped us to achieve 1, 2, 3 goals. So if we achieve 1, 2, 3 goals, I call that what? Success. And that's the path we're working on. That's the path we're going to. And that's what we're going to talk about more in the next episode of getting away from that drudgery, not debauchery like I said in the last episode, that debauchery. It's getting away from debauchery as well, but we'll talk more about that when we look at transmutation in the next episode. Things that we have to kind of get away from in order to succeed. Tools and things we need to do to succeed so that we can take that growth mindset and get to achieving. When we take that growth mindset and we get into achieving, we start believing that the dream is possible. And when we believe that the dream is possible, we retrieve the desired skills and knowledge that we need, and we seek and listen to the answers. It's listening to those answers that help us to start making the right moves towards our personal goals. And as we achieve our personal goals, we start seeing the light at the end of that success tunnel. It's closer and closer. It's not miles away anymore. We're like, oh, what am I going to do after I get out of this tunnel? Should I create another tunnel? We start thinking those things. We already believe that we received what we're attempting to achieve. And that's the powerful part of this. So, I want you all to see the wins. And my quote for today is, intrinsic interest motivates us to work harder at reaching. Intrinsic interest motivates us to work harder at reaching a goal. And those of us who maintain a steady pace see the smaller wins along the way. One more time. Intrinsic interest motivates us to work harder at reaching a goal. And those of us who maintain a steady pace see the smaller wins along the way. All right. And that is all focusing on, like I was saying before, we might end up working late hours. We might double our hours. We might work through lunch. We might work at home. Not everybody can do this though. You know what I mean? There are laws. There are laws when we work for employers. However, if you're starting your own business and you extremely love what you do, why not work 16 hours? 16 hours is a good time. The average person works mentally 16 hours anyway. People try to go home and they try to zone out, but they end up working harder because their mind is being cognitively overloaded by the television with other people's dreams and other people's thoughts. And they're sitting stagnant working on other people's dreams. Now, I love entertainment just like anybody else. I watch movies and I binge watch and all that too. But we have to limit that. We have to do what it takes to grow and make change happen. Because when we do what it takes to grow to make change happen, we start seeing our path. We start seeing the road that we need to be on, and we start activating more belief, more retrieval tools, more achievements. It's a nonstop process. People think, oh yeah, I'm going to make it to get rich and then I'm going to stop. No, once you get rich, you got to keep moving forward. It's not you don't stop learning once you get to that goal. You keep learning and growing. It's part of life. And if you don't keep learning and growing, your hands become idle. You start thinking evil thoughts and evil ways. You don't feel good about yourself. It is one thing about us. It's human nature for us to want to work. We want to work. We want to create. We want to use our hands and we want to use our minds and we want to use whatever tools we have at our disposal to get to the next, whatever level it may be. We got to catch our dreams. Like I said, he's a dream catcher. We got to catch our dreams. Because if we don't catch our dreams, then we don't understand at all success. We don't even view it. We don't see the small wins if we don't catch our dreams. So see the small wins. Not only do you want to see the wins, but you want to take next steps to get to those goals. So let's just jump into it. What are your next steps? What are your next steps? That's what I was saying here. Your next first step is focus on providing value. That's what I say. We got to all focus on providing value. And the reason why is because no matter what, if we are providing anything, we're either going to provide a product or we're going to provide a service. And when we provide a product or we provide a service, we need to provide some kind of value. If we're not providing value, then we're not going to make any sales. We're not going to do anything for anybody else that helps us grow as well. Just because we need to do for I first doesn't mean that we can't do for community. So we got to commune somehow. So remember, you got to provide value. Next, take planned breaks. You got to take some gaps. You got to take some space. And we'll talk about that more in the next episode. That's why it's the next steps. Think about your planned breaks. Think about, even if you work 16 hours a day, you got to take some breaks in there. And you got to plan to step away. I know some people that get in the music studio, and matter of fact, Timberland was talking about this. Timberland was talking about, he did his first stream, and he was like, I worked on it for maybe about a half an hour, and then he skipped to another song. Now, why do you think Timberland worked on that for about a half an hour, then he skipped to a new song? Because he knows that if he listens to that all day and all night long, he will never create a hot beat. Because if he listens to that same beat over and over and over again, he's stuck in that beat. He doesn't give himself any space to create and grow. And we have to give ourselves some space to create and grow. I've done this before. I've worked on stuff for days on end and didn't give myself space. When I do these lessons now, I give myself space. Generally, I'm creating these lessons this morning. Like, up early in the morning, create the lesson, then we go ahead and we do the plan. I know what I'm going to say. I have a game plan for the year. I have 52 weeks laid out. All right. But in the 52 weeks, I still want to create the lessons either once a week or once a month and then break it into 4 separate lessons. I haven't gotten to the 4 separate lessons yet because I'm just breaking it open. But I'm doing it right now once a week, creating a lesson. It's part of my drudgery. It's part of my tediousness. But I've made it fun because I sit back and I give myself space. I let myself think about it. I think about it throughout the week. Gradually think, oh, you know what? Let me add that. I'll take a note and then I'll jot something down. Like the books that I came from today. We'll talk about the books that I came from today as well, which allow me to do what? They allow me to play to win. That's your next step too. You got to play to win. You got to go for it. Just do it. You'll hear me say that a lot more often. Just do it. I hear people saying, I'm trying to do this. I've said it. No, just do it. For me, that's my way to get to the next level. I don't want to discourage anybody who says, like I said in the last episode, if you say to yourself, I'm trying to do this, and that helps you do it, that motivates you to get it done, then by all means, say I try, say I attempt. But for me, I failed to succeed, so I got to do. And I got to correct myself every time I say I'm attempting or trying to do something. Unless it's something that I am actually in the process of doing and it's failing and I'm like, hey, I attempted to do it. I'm going to do it again. I'm going to work on it again. You got to use the word attempt here and there because I think attempt is an important word. But don't use it to lower your esteem about what you're doing. Use it to uplift yourself. Use it to grow. And that's what I'm saying, actually saying that to myself. Right then and there, I just said that statement directly to myself because that's what I was thinking to myself. Don't use it for those reasons. Use it to uplift yourself. So, lastly, track your progress. Always remember where you started from. Always remember where you're going. Track your progress. See where you're at now. See where you can make it better. See how you can make it more fun. And with that being said, I hope you enjoyed this lesson. Thanks for watching. If you got any questions, comments, or concern, you can feel free to call me at 310-844-9285. That's 310-844-9285. Or you can stop by docreo.com and leave me some kind of chat message. I get a whole bunch of messages about all kind of stuff on docreo.com. And sometimes I wonder what people have time to do. But if you're want to know about the references, I talked from one book today. I talked from a couple of books today, but this one is For the Win. Game thinking can revolutionize your business. Yep. So it's called For the Win. Game thinking, how game thinking can revolutionize your business. So that's where the gamification came from. And I actually came out of one of my other lessons before when I spoke about niche speaking, but I did find some of those elements in Applying the Science of Learning, another book that was already on the list. I'm bringing it back one more time because there are a lot of elements when it comes to figuring out what it takes for you to learn the right things, or observing and evaluating what you need to know to use the right skills or what you need to learn and how to use your skills properly. Like when we talk about the zone of proximal development, I mean, that's in there. I brought it back up again this last episode. Or when we talk about memory, using your memory to recall the skills that you know. So even though I'm reiterating it, I wanted to make sure that in doing so, I went back to Ferroni because the inverted Maslowian pyramid. I got to make sure I bring that back every time, folks. It is the key to our voyage, and I think it's being used against us. A lot of ways it's being used against us because people are left feeling like they can only concentrate on their physiological and safety needs. Some people have been able to focus on their belonging, their small communities in their homes and in their communities, as well as their home and safety needs. But right now, it's hard for a lot of people. And a lot of people are struggling with just those two. And it helps to be able to dream so that we can build hope and get past those things that keep us from having the esteem to go out there and get our needs. So I hope you find the esteem that you need, just like I hope each and every one of us finds the esteem that we need to build our self-confidence and grow and use that self-confidence to gain strength in knowing that we can be effective in our communities, in our world, in our lives. Use self-confidence to gain self-efficacy. This is Doc. I hope you enjoyed the show. Stay tuned for more in the Hot Box as we come back next week with success. Mindset to succeed. That's right. Self-efficacy versus self-confidence. Mindset to succeed. The last part of this 4-part series of the 52-week series that I'm building for you. For me as well, because it's not just helping you. It's not just helping me. It's helping community. So I hope I help each and every one of you out there gain at least a little bit of knowledge that motivates you to get to the next level in your life, that motivates you to grow. And if you have any more questions, feel free to stop by, give me a call, stop by the website, send me any messages. With that being said, I'm out of here. Peace. Stay tuned for more in the Hot Box with Doc Reo as we come back next week with more. The mindset to succeed. If you or someone you know is having thoughts of harming themselves, please contact the Suicide Prevention Hotline at 1-800-273-8255. That's 1-800-273-8255. And if you're a veteran of the armed forces, press 1 after dialing 1-800-273-8255. Doc Reo TV.